right, everyone, and welcome to Something Wicked DocuFest 2024. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the co-festival director and program director of Something Wicked DocuFest and Something Wicked Film Festival. We have an amazing program this weekend for you, but what we especially are doing today is recording another amazing interview with the filmmakers who film is screening at our event. And we hope to give you all a little bit of insight into their filmmaking process and a little bit about their film themselves. So the film we are talking about now is Bake It Till You Make It. And I'm going to let our ladies just say who they are, what they did on the film, and a little bit about the film, because I don't want to be telling everybody what their film is. That's what they're here for. How about you?
Me? Okay, sure. I'm Dana. Thank you for having me and let me be part of this. I am the subject of the documentary, but working on such a small team, I also had the opportunity to support in other creative areas, which is amazing. And it was an incredible experience, and I'm so grateful to Thea and Swanito Media for finding my story and wanting to share it. So that's me.
Yeah, and then I'm Thea Touchton. I'm a producer. I own my own production company, Swanito Media, and we primarily focus on mental health documentaries, and now we're moving into animated short films and cartoons and features. So that's what we do. I produced this movie, but also as we were in Indy, that came with like a lot of other jobs. But I loved it, so I'd do it again.
Well, on documentary filmmaking, we don't usually have the huge crew and cast that a regular film would have. So I think a lot of our
absolutely. Yeah, and I started out as an actor, so I'm new into like the production space. This is like 2 years in, we made a movie. So yeah, we were ambitious.
So to start off, it took you 2 years to get all the footage for your movie, Bake It Till You Make It.
Actually, Bake It only took 10 days to film. Okay. So yeah. Took 10 days to film, and then a couple months of the edit. I think we would have been done about 5 months into the edit, except then some footage got corrupted, which is so fun. So that took us to like I want to say about like eight. I feel like 8 is a stretch of 8 months of editing, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
8 months of editing. Editing is always what's going to take the time with a documentary film. You get all this great footage, and then you have to put it all together in something cohesive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you want to talk about too. I know we forgot. Sorry about what Bake It is about. So that's really kind of important. So Dana. Cool, awesome,
amazing. Yes. So Bake It Till You Make It is the documentary is about my story, my mental health story, as well as the organization that I created called Bake It Till You Make It, which is an organization that uses food and baking to tell mental health stories, to promote creativity and healing and recovery. And I think the documentary in my mind is like those two parts, which is amazing. Like you get to hear where I came from and like the struggles that I've had with depression and eating disorder and OCD, but also what has come of it, and like what what has come of it is so much bigger than me and my story. And it's being able to learn about other people's stories and share them, and inspire communities to look to creative outlets for their mental health healing, as well as, therapeutic supports, etc. And I'm also an author and like a writer. So we were able to implement some of my poetry into the documentary, which I think was incredibly special, not only as a poet, but also, given that this is like my life, it's so deeply personal to me. So including that was really wonderful. And, so that's like a little bit about the documentary, and then the actual organization. Yeah, we create, I love to say we, and it's like, it's me out here creating cookbooks, as well as sharing my story. I get to speak across the country to different like high schools and colleges, sharing my mental health story and conducting baking workshops while I do that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yes, it may be in a nutshell, but you go through a lot of this in your film, and I'm going to
Yes.
jump a little bit ahead in your film because I found this very fascinating. After you created Bake It Till You Make It, you put out these books that actually have
Yes.
your stories in them, as well as other people's whose stories about mental health are also in it. I found that really fascinating because I've never seen a book like that. Tell us a
Thank
little bit
you.
how you got to that point, because that was really an interesting aspect of your film.
Wow, yeah, thank you so much. That was like how Bake It Till You Make It began. I didn't realize it was going to be like a bigger movement, I would say. I just thought it was going to be a cookbook. I had a really challenging summer. The summer of 2017 was really challenging for me, and I learned how to bake basically. I'd never really been into baking or cooking, like given my eating disorder history. It was just never something that I enjoyed. But that summer, that is like what got me through. And so the idea that including other people's stories and realizing that that is a really cool like superpower of mine, which I think Thea also holds, is like being able to share other people's stories as well as my own, has felt like, yeah, really incredible. You know, so many people ask me like how I find the people in the books. Like, how did you know these people who like want to contribute to your books? And the nicest compliment was someone was like, it's you, Dana. Like talking to you is like what makes me feel comfortable sharing my story. And that's just like, yeah, wow. Like what an amazing compliment. But that has been how I've collected the stories for the books.
Well, that's one of the things I really liked about the way the film was edited and what you showed in the film, because you actually showed some of the, I think it was the fourth, correct me if I'm ever wrong, because I got a lot of films in my head, so I'm trying to remember them all. But I think it was the fourth book where you used other people's stories in them, but you also had people illustrated, which I thought was very fascinating. They helped you do your book, and that shows an aspect of a mental disorder or eating disorder, since you talk about that a lot as well, which you wouldn't expect someone with an eating disorder to make a cookbook, which I thought was very fascinating.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're right. You were exactly right. The fourth book is when I had the illustrators, and I'm so grateful that we got to show that aspect of the book and the process.
So since it took you 8 weeks to film it, I gotta
10
know.
days.
No, 10 days. Yeah, 10 days. 2 weeks of filming. Yeah.
10
we
days
went home a day
filming.
early because there's a huge snowstorm. So we were gonna get trapped, and we were all like, "Oh no!" So, yeah, but we managed to do it. Yeah, we took a rest day too, because I'm very much about like keeping mental health the top of mind in filmmaking, which I think is something that is often forgotten, and something that I'm trying to kind of bring in with the company, because I think greater art comes from mental stability. I think the rumor that you have to be suffering to produce great creative works is not necessarily true. So we did take a rest day and we saw 80 for Brady. There was a part of me when we were editing that I was like, oh man, should we have taken that rest day? But I think it all worked out. Like the film at this point has been like screened over, gosh, like 15 times, won 10 awards, like 5 nominations. Yeah, so we've had a lot of success. And I think that's really to attribute to like the feel goodness of it, which was my goal from the beginning as a producer. I was like, from the mental health documentaries that I saw, they were just very like, here's the problem, and like, okay, go home. You know what I mean? Like, go home and deal with that there's a mental health crisis. And I was like, no, I know there's solutions. I know Dana has some of them. Let's share that so that people watch this documentary and know that they're not alone, and know like what resources to get and where to start their healing journey, and know that there's just hope out there.
So Thea, I want to address this because you just hit it on. You're right. There is a lot of films about eating disorders and mental health that are not as engaging, or as entertaining is not the right word. But Dana, your personality on screen is like infectious. It's something I couldn't help but just keep watching it, because you are so, even though you're suffering with a really bad condition, you are like a bubbly of energy through here to this whole film. And I believe that that's a great aspect of your personality that when people watch this, they will see that there are other ways of dealing with these disorders. There are other ways of seeing and finding help. And I took that out of your film, because if it had been a normal film where I was just watching the same old about mental health and eating disorders, where you feel like you're being instructed by a teacher, I would have tuned out. But I have to, but the way you guys edited it, with breaking each section up with fun little, it goes to the tone and mood of the film. So I have to commend you both for that, because I was never bored while watching the movie.
That's wow! What an amazing compliment. Also, when Thea and I had the opportunity to screen it, like in other capacities, something that an eating disorder therapist said to us was that it wasn't triggering, which is like so like amazing, because that was like another big goal, was that like we wanted people to take away information, inspiration, but like without it being triggering. And I think that was just very validating to know that like we were approaching this in a way that's meaningful, but also it's not going to like be upsetting. And that is huge too.
Oh, your film is not going to be upsetting. I'll tell you that.
Right.
For someone who has never had to deal with either one of these disorders, it made me understand them a little bit more from your perspective. I'm telling you, most of the stuff I am privy to is the kind of the dry, here are the facts, and this is what you have to understand about these facts about eating disorder and mental health. That's wrong, it's bad, we need to solve it, but we don't know how to solve it.
Yeah.
You have done that. So I want to commend you on that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, and that's kind of the whole point, I think, of the film, and my goals for like my next mental health documentaries too, is to not just keep it like we're combined of science, right? Science is a part of us, but we're also people, and that is sometimes more interesting and sometimes easier to digest. Like we're not textbook definitions of disorders. We are multifaceted, rather. Like Dayna is not just her recovery from her eating disorder, she's so much more. She's an author, she's an entrepreneur, right? Like and that was like a big portion of the film too. We had many goals. I think that was number 2. Ending the stigma and getting people to understand.
So, Thea, what is your background with filmmaking? Did you just find the story interesting to make a film, or what's your background?
Yeah, so I was an actor. I'm in SAG-AFTRA still. I still do act. So I learned a lot. I was always like, I'm just a person that pays attention because I like to be in the present moment. That's helpful for acting. And meanwhile, when I was acting, I was like making a YouTube channel and talking about my own mental health disorders. And then at one point, there was this opportunity to submit via this form on Facebook. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I was like, I was in a spot of like, I'm putting myself out there, I'm going to do it. And that's actually how I ended up meeting Dayna, is that opportunity ended up being MTV's Mental Health Youth Action Day, which they had partnered with the Biden administration. So we met for the first time at the White House. And I met 29 other mental health youth like advocates out there. And we all had come in with like different programs for mental health, trying to get them picked up by other big corporations to integrate. And we all just ended up working with each other. And at the time too, I wasn't really thinking about doing documentaries. I was honestly just trying to get therapist like mental health content on video, because I know a lot of people are just like, oh, go to therapy. And I'm like, that's 1 hour a week, you guys. That's 1 hour a week. Weeks are so many more hours than that. We need like more resources than just that. Like we need like coping skills that are on video, like not just the Instagram little square. Like I'm glad that's a part of it, right? But I wanted more. But therapists were a little shy. And so once I met all of the mental health youth advocates, I was like, oh, like, well, they obviously like don't mind speaking, like I'll ask them. And I knew I wanted to I'd done a lot of shorts. So I was like, I want to make a feature. I want to get that under my belt and understand that as a filmmaker. So I asked Dayna and I was like, hey, would you be down? And she was like, I would. And I was like, okay, well, here's kind of what we would need. And I thought it was going to take like a year, you know, to like, because just takes time in pre-production. And Dana's like, okay, I have everything ready to go end of February. Does that sound good? And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. I don't know how you did that, but you're amazing. So sure.
I appreciate that. It's not everyone gets this opportunity to share their story. I was like getting after it. Like, yes, this is Thea believes in me and my story. And so I wanted to make it happen. And I think we did get a lot of like great content in our 10 days with just like showing different aspects of what Bake It Slowly Make It is and who I am in a lot of ways too.
I wouldn't guess it was 10 days of y'all just shooting this.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about. I was also very inspired by I read Rebel Without a Film Crew, Robert Rodriguez's book, and I was like, he did it. And then I realized, wow, the 90s are a very different time from this time. And when he was doing that, I mean, he had a harder job because we had like digital film, and I was reading in the book, there's just chapters of him physically cutting film. And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't have to do that as a filmmaker. I would have lost it. I don't know how filmmakers do film now. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's easier. But
no, it's not easy.
Okay, cool.
I learned.
It looks great, but oh my god.
Yeah. I learned an actual splicing film when I was in school.
Wow. I'm impressed because oh my gosh, that's backbreaking work. Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, that's that's great to hear about. But let's get back to some of the other aspects of of your story, Dana. I want to talk to you about why. Well, you got to go to the White House, and I don't want to tell too much about that because I think that's a very important part of your story that's in the film. I want people to watch your film. I'm trying to get around some of the other aspects of your story without telling people too much. But I think that one of the biggest things that that's in your film is that you have a lot of your family members in here who talk about you and talk about what you had to go through. And was that hard for you to hear? Was that hard for you to actually come to terms with? Because family is a huge coping mechanism for something like eating disorders and mental disorders.
That's such a good question. And you're right. I'm so glad you brought that up because that was something that's definitely a big part of the film. Not only the way my family interpreted, what I was going through as a kid, but also how it affected them. And I'm so glad and happy that we included that, especially my sister, which Thea was really saying, that was really important because I think she was the only one who was kind of at first not really sure. And now looking back at the film, I feel like it's such an important perspective and kind of coming to recognize and realize if you're not the person struggling, but you love someone who is, how you can support them and also recognize that it does affect you as well. Mental health challenges don't happen in vacuums. They happen around, in our communities with ones we love. So I agree. I think I'm so happy that we did that. I think in terms of it being challenging in some ways, yes, I think that, and I also think that having the opportunity to have had the books a little bit before, it wasn't the first time I had heard my family talk about this experience, but it definitely was the first time on film or in this way. So I think had I not had that experience before, it might have been even more challenging, but I'm very grateful that they were willing to share their perspectives and not only on me, but also how this affected, as I said, their own mental health. And I know that was really important to Thea, and I'm really happy that we did that for sure.
Yeah. So what was Thea, what was something that was difficult in making this film? Because this isn't this is a very personal film. So it's a very personal story about something that's very topical. Mental disorders and eating disorders are very prevalent in the very prevalent in our conversation today.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. So
yes, no, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was, one, there was a lot of do I have the audacity to kind of do this? There was a lot of that is going in as a filmmaker of oh, whom I and also just I promised Dana to make a documentary, which I had never done in a full length feature, right? And there was so much also just going on in my own life that because of course Murphy's Law, like everything that will go wrong can go wrong, and you should have plan A through Z as a producer, which I did, and that was fine. But it was like a very, and I knew it would be, you know, like I knew my first film, it's a learning experience, so it was going to be very, very stressful. And I have like a whole family history, like my mom had an eating disorder, so it was healing for me too, because I was just realizing things about my mom through making the film, but I knew it would be powerful. And I kept thinking when I made the film, I was like, I wish my mom had had a film like this when she was younger, you know what I mean? And it was like, and now I've created that. So I felt a lot of power for it. But yeah, like I learned a lot about organization. I learned a lot about the skills that I need to work on, you know what I mean? And and I also learned about the skills that I do have. So that was just challenging. Just kind of rising to the occasion. Because I think every like artist does just struggle with like extreme self-doubt, and and I still, even in the process of submitting this, and now we're in our distribution look, like there's a lot of me talking myself off the ledge, and I'm glad that I have some like support systems too to have those conversations with. But yeah, it is hectic. I mean, especially too, like we made this and then there was a strike in the middle of it too. And I was really glad that I was like, I'm so glad this is nonfiction right now. But even then it was weird, right? Like what could you promote? What could you not? Like I was also strike captaining during that time. So my plate has been full. Yeah. So there was a lot.
Oh wow, that's interesting. That's very interesting, because I would not have strike captain and trying to figure out if you could promote your own documentary film. That had to be rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's like hard too. It's like here's everybody kind of suffering out in the lines, and I'm like, but I'm really excited about this documentary, guys. You know what I mean? I'm like, but also collectively, I feel for you. But I was like, also like, yay! There's lots of hats.
How has the film been received then? Are you screening? Because I want to know if only because I just did another interview with someone else, and they've been distributing their film through a lot of schools, a lot of different avenues other than trying to get a theatrical distribution, because they can reach a bigger audience if they go for the target market for their film. How has it been for you two getting your film out there to the right audience to understand what you're trying to get through?
Yeah, I honestly think the reception of the film has been really positive. I feel like we keep getting in more and more spaces that when I originally made it, I didn't even think about. Like I wasn't even thinking about schools because obviously this is my first film, right? Like you don't know until you know. And we've done, like, I know Dana's done a couple schools, and you can probably speak on that more. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's amazing to see the film received so well, especially like when I'm in the room, you know, with like the students and everything. No, but it seems to be very genuine. I have had the opportunity to show the documentary at a couple schools local to me in Boston or in Massachusetts. And that has gone really well. I bring cupcakes, and like there's just a lot of questions. And I think it's also interesting because I do have the opportunity to like speak at schools as well separately. And I feel like it's a lot harder sometimes to, at the end when people like are asking questions, like to feel comfortable to do that. And I've seen when you show the documentary, there's definitely more of a comfort in like sharing personally, I think, or that's like been my experience so far, is like, you know, at school, especially like among youth, like seeing something versus just hearing it, I think is really powerful in helping them maybe come forward and share something about themselves, or ask a question in a way of like seeing the arc of my own recovery in a way that I can't just like explain it when I'm speaking. So yeah.
No, I get that. Because I always I would love to hear more stories about people who give their or screen their films for the audience that it's particularly will be beneficial for. So, of course, I think you said in the film that you were 19 in college when you started.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
I'm trying to get on. So
I'm so impressed.
Too many films in my brain.
You have had all accurate things. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, those story the audiences. I'm hoping that your film, your type of film with your type of subject matter is reaching the right audience, because there are so many kids out there, so many teenagers, so many young people that are going through the exact same thing that you went through, and I hope that they find something very positive out of watching your film, because I think it'll be much more effective than the typical dry, these are the facts. We need to figure out how to fix this type of film. I think, since you're the first person who's the subject of the film that I'm interviewing, this is the first time I get to ask these questions. I think that by having you there to actually screen the film and then people ask questions is an amazing experience for people to have. I think by like you said, when people are seeing you and meeting you, it gives them a grander perspective on just how big this problem is and how prevalent it is in our society.
Right.
I think it's great what you're doing, and I want to continue. I hope you continue to do this. And hopefully, Thea, you'll make more movies like this. Or
For sure. I also think what was really interesting, something that I had never imagined, is I honestly just did like a little like you can promote your movie for $10 on Film Freeway, and I did that, and a bunch of films festivals like offered me to submit, and a lot of them were international, and we started winning awards internationally, which was really, really beautiful to see, because I also just know like the American mental health conversation is so different than some other cultures, and like we've won awards in Mexico, like India, Greece, Sweden. Like it's been that, also just having that proof for a distributor I think is very positive, because it's like it's not just the American college age, right? It's like it's honestly broader, right? And so that has me very excited about this story.
Nice. That's great news to hear, because I always like to find out where the films that the filmmakers I interviewed actually end up going, and how they go about their means of distribution. Some of them, like I said, they'll just screen them in theatrically, while others find a different avenue, like schools, universities, places like that. I think that's one of the different aspects for distribution for nonfiction that's just not really there for fiction films. And I hope that more filmmakers can utilize that with their particular stories. And, part of the reason why we do these interviews is to show other filmmakers, younger filmmakers, first-time filmmakers, exactly what they can do with their films. You did yours in 10 days. I can't get past the fact it's 10 days. All right, 10 days, a feature film, and you're getting it out there in multiple different film festivals over the entire, I guess internationally is the best way to say it, and it's resonating with people. So that's great to hear. That's all I ever want to hear from filmmakers, is that their films are resonating with audiences.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So, if there is something you ladies want an audience to pick from your film, or not pick, but take away from your film as they're watching your film, what would it be?
What a good question. I think that for me, and I think it's changed a little bit over the last year. Like, I think that, and maybe it might have something to do with some of the feedback that like I've received, or like in like schools, people saying like, I had no idea, or saying like, I had no idea that there were other people like me, or like your story is we're so similar. And so I guess the you are not alone message just like feels really important, and continues to feel important as more and more people say like, we have the same story, or our stories are different but the same feelings, and just really recognizing that like it's okay to struggle with your mental health. Like you don't have to hide. It's and there are ways to recover, and also that it is still a process. That was really so helpful that we include that in the documentary, because I think that in the past, personally, I have felt like, oh, I'm at this place, like it's just gonna be better forever, like I am recovered, but that has not been my experience, and I don't think that's realistic for a lot of people. So the idea that it's continuous, it's living recovery, is important to me as well.
Oh, okay. And you actually mentioned that in the film too, when you said that you had to change your your dosage, your medication, because
yeah. That is
as you get weaned off of it, and I do know a little bit about this because I know someone who had to change her dosage because of the same reason.
Yeah.
She got so used to it that they had to keep upping it for her body to not be acclimated to the lower dosage. So it's a journey. It's a journey.
It's a journey. Exactly. You're not alone, and it's a journey. Those are my yeah.
What about you, Thea?
Mine is definitely take up space. Like, I think just go for it, put yourself out there. I think even if you're struggling, I think that's something we don't talk about, because I think so often we're like, oh no, I'm suffering. That means I have to go be alone. And I'm like, no, take up space, even messy, is what I would say. Because how can people help you if they can't see you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so well said.
Yeah, it is. I'm laughing, but that is actually really well said. Yeah, you know.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you both, ladies, for joining us for this interview for Something Wicked DocuFest. I am wishing your film nothing but continued success on its festival journey. I'm hoping that people will watch it this weekend for the film festival, and I'm looking forward to whatever you come up with next, because I know you ain't gonna stop with just this one. Then you have a niche you can build on. If you're not making the film, I'm sure Dana's gonna be writing a book about something.
Yeah.
Sorry about another one.
We both have really exciting, paths ahead.
A cookbook or a poetry book, you're gonna come up with something.
Yes.
With illustrations, and it will be something informative, and it will be something that's also engaging for the audience. But I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to both of you.
Yeah, you were a great interviewer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, seriously, this was amazing.
Thank you. But like I said, I wish the film nothing but continued success. And I'm really excited that I'll be able to screen it so that people can actually see your journey and have a piece of seeing or understanding what mental and disabilities and eating disabilities are like. I think your personal journey is the best way to educate people. That's the right word. Educate people about it. So thank you so much. And everyone out there who's watching this, I hope you do seek out the film for this weekend's event. Make sure to check out the filmmakers on social media, because it's going to be, we make sure to tag them on everything. And I want to thank you all for joining us for Something Wicked DocuFest 2024. Thank you, and have a good day.